What is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sibling Rivalry, the comic book club show hosted on the newly rebranded Shalom-Aste Comics YouTube
Yeah.
website, everything. Um, Rival Read is a comic book club, so Anna and I choose books that we want to read each week, and we read them, and then we sit down, we judge the pants off of them, and talk about whether or not it'd be a good pickup for you guys. And then we also kind of like hearing what you guys think about the comics. So be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think of the comic book itself. Let us know if you agree with what we think or if you have a completely different opinion. We want to hear. And I host this show with my wonderful sister, Anna Ken.
And this week we read 2 volumes instead of the normal 1.
Yes.
What?
But still less pages than when I made us read Zatanna.
That's like me in the future ever being like, Ben, we're reading Batman Nightfall.
That's a really good one, and I would be totally down to read that, though.
I actually have the first one in my room as a book.
Yeah, it's
I mean, that does us no good in terms of,
no.
streaming, but...
But, I chose this because I am I'm a really big Brian Michael Bendis fan. And I believe this is his first book after his contract ended with Marvel. So this is his first book kind of on his own. And just looking at the cover, and like some of the little like preview art for inside, I was immediately grabbed by this book and was like, I want to check this out. And I mean, again, being Brian Michael Bendis, it just gave me more reason to want to check the book out. And the art was done by Michael Gaydos. I think that's how you say his name. I could be wrong. I could be butchering it. But yeah. So that was really my whole reasoning for picking it out. And Anna's camera kind of froze a little bit in a really, really good.
Oh.
But yeah, so I picked it mainly because of the cover art and liking the author. That was like the huge reason behind picking what I did. And personally, I think just to go like right off the bat, you and I kind of discussed this a little bit earlier today. I think what this book really made me realize about comics is that when I sit down and read a comic, I think I just prefer the superhero story.
I think you just prefer fantasy.
Fantasy, like sci-fi kind of story. And I think
Something that stretches believability.
right. This one was definitely not that. This one was definitely more just a work of fiction. Not to say that I thought it was bad, because I did not think it was bad. I just don't think this was for me.
I have such a hard... There's so many things about this book where I'm like, I don't know if this is, I don't like this because it's not my taste, or I don't like this because I think it wasn't executed as well as it could have been. And I'm leaning more towards it's probably just not to my taste.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in terms of dialogue and storyline, there were a lot of moments that felt incredibly rushed.
But at the same time, there were also a lot of moments that felt like they just dragged on.
Well, like conflict moments felt like they just dragged on, but in terms of relationship development, I felt like it was extremely fast paced to an unbelievable degree.
Okay.
And like
Okay.
Rick as a character seemed stupid.
He really, really did. I,
Like
I really enjoyed
cool
his character when he was in Japan,
stoner
though.
guy
Yeah,
in his 20s.
yeah. I did find him pretty funny when he was in Japan. And you know, those scenes where he was like live blogging or video or just vlogging.
That was funny. That was enjoyable. But I mean, the moments where he interacts with the Yakuza or the Yakuza were talking about him, like that entire dialogue between Pearl and her cousin
Uh-huh.
about her needing to break up with him, that entire conversation sounded so fake.
Uh-huh. No, I agree. There
And so that, like, the dialogue bothered me because I didn't know if, like, and there was a lot of profanity when it didn't really need to be there, which I know a lot of people watch things like that, and I just don't. So I think that might be a taste thing, not necessarily.
and I don't even think it's necessarily like it's probably it has to do with the taste thing because I don't think that took took me out of the story at all because in this like realm in this world I feel like there would be a lot of cursing.
But that's, I understand a lot of cursing, but in the same degree of like how a lot of the dialogue felt forced, a lot of the cursing was just like thrown in there to be like, "Nah, I think they should say something because we haven't thrown an F bomb in here in a while, in a few pages."
I think I kind of I agree with you on a lot of the forced conversation. I don't agree with you on that. There wasn't like gratuitous cursing takes me out of dialogue a lot. I did not have that problem reading through any of this, and
Okay.
I do personally feel like it fit a lot of like the conversation, and part of it could be I spent 8 years of my life in the last 10 years of my life living in San Francisco. So hearing all of the stoner druggies and all of that talking just walking by them, I feel like that could potentially be. It's not a world that I'm not used to already.
Uh-huh.
Um, so for me, it didn't take me out that much.
Okay.
But I can definitely see how yes, it was a lot of cursing, and as someone who does usually get turned off by again gratuitous cursing, I could see how your opinion is that way. Um,
See how it could lend to the story. I think that on top of my feelings of forced dialogue, that those two in combination just then made it seem even more so.
for sure,
So,
absolutely. Um, but
the
go ahead.
overall story was interesting.
It was interesting, for sure. Um, it definitely had some of those moments where I was definitely like, huh, I did not see that coming. And I think that one moment would be her mom being a big clan boss.
Leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like that was definitely not something I saw coming from this story. Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
It was another one of those things where I don't think I could ever imagine myself reading this weekly or however frequently it came out.
yeah, yeah, I would agree with you
There was a lot of
on.
jumping,
Uh huh.
like time hopping. And I mean, they did a very good job with their little like text blocks, especially with the road trip scenes and things like that kind of followed you through the story. But I mean, you ended one volume and then all of a sudden you were, I mean, in volume 1 they ended volume 2. The first couple of comics ended in with you in Portland, and then you flip the page and all of a sudden you're in Tokyo, and there was this huge cliffhanger in Portland, so you're just like, what just happened?
Yeah. There was definitely a lot of that. I think,
which it was well done, but I
It
don't think
was.
that would have turned me off on a week to week thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at how the issues originally came out. Because as far as I know, they just came out in volumes.
Okay.
But I could be mistaken. But I think that they just came out in volume.
And I mean, I also want to preface like what I'm about to say with I am not a prude in like what I'm reading. However, a lot of like some of the things that happened with was it the Endo twins?
Yeah.
I was kind of like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yep.
Why am I reading this?
Now, I think that was what I disliked the most. Anytime the Endo twins came into the story at all, I was just kind of like, what is the point of you being here? Because I truly believe that this same kind of story could be told with just
Pearl,
Mike, and Kai. Was that his name?
Oh yeah, Kai. I froze again. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't enjoy their characters, and I felt like them and Rick dumbed down the entire story.
Yeah.
To a degree where I was like, why? Why are they there to do that?
I don't know. Yeah, I really.
Pearl's tattoos were interesting and cool.
I thought the story behind how she did her tattoos was really cool.
Still very curious how she did her back.
I'm sure she's very curious how she did that too.
Well, she's very curious about all of them.
Yeah. And I think that was, first off, the tattoo designs in this book. Mwah, chef's kiss, like absolutely beautiful. And
hers were my favorite.
What's that?
Hers were my favorite.
Hers were your favorite?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the fact that like her tattoos would really only show under like strong emotions, I thought that was really, really quite cool. Anna, on Discord. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. Your video just randomly came back.
You know, I thought her tattoos were awesome. This is like one of the things that I was also kind of disappointed in. This didn't impact anything about the story or anything like that. I keep freezing, and that one's a terrible face. But was the tattoo artist that did her spider.
Yeah.
Wanted to know the story behind him because Kim kept making it sound like there was so much more to why Pearl would be so interested in somebody who recognized the artist. And then Pearl is kind of disinterested when she learns that, oh, he's just another tattoo artist. That's why he knows this guy. And so it's like, but then why was the real reason you were all excited about somebody knowing the tattoo artist? And you never learned.
Yeah. Honestly,
did not impact the story at all. I was just curious.
It did not. But there were quite a few things that were like that came up that were like, oh, cool. and then they never got revisited again.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like she was only a hitman for the Yakuza for like 2 seconds. And that the whole her becoming one just did not make that. That was a leap. That the Yakuza boss, Mr. Is it Mr. Mike or is it Mr. Meek?
Oh.
Because
I kept saying Mr. Mike.
Because I know HII in Japanese is he.
I have no idea.
Okay, me neither.
I apologize too.
Same. I could have looked it up. I know people that speak Japanese, and I could have looked it up and figured it out ahead of time, but I didn't.
I didn't even think about it. I just assumed Mike, which is terrible of me.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, my faces are stupid when they keep freezing.
Oh my gosh, guys, if you are listening to the podcast version of this, I am so sorry, but something is going on with Anna's computer where it is just freezing her camera every few minutes, and it's great. If you're watching on YouTube, you're enjoying it with me, so yeah. I feel like Mr. Mike made quite the leap of, okay, she defended herself, now I'm going to make her a Yakuza hitman. Because she does this, she has a cool tattoo, and she's an awesome tattoo artist.
He doesn't know about her tattoo.
Oh, that's right.
It wasn't until later. She was albino.
Right.
Which is worse. Like,
yeah, absolutely. 100%.
A cool tattoo, it's because, you're born.
Yeah.
Different.
Yep. She's just built different.
I don't know why you're laughing. I don't really understand. Are you laughing at my face that it froze on again? My face isn't even that bad in that one. Anyway, I'm just
Psycho eyes, guys. She's got psycho eyes. Okay.
I look dead inside with that smile. But anyway, yeah, so I have a really hard time, which I guess I'll get into when we do scoring. I have a very hard time knowing if I didn't like it, and that should be how my score is reflected, but it wasn't bad. I just didn't like it. But then I don't know where on the, was it good, or was it just okay, good, in terms of the spectrum.
Right. Now, something I did really enjoy about this book, and it was one of the two main reasons I picked it, I really did enjoy the art in it. You obviously have different opinions.
This was another thing where I'm extremely torn.
I thought it did some really, really interesting things, and you and I picked some of the same pages and panels. I liked how different... I really liked when they used the, onomatopoeias. They put, the comic book art, the image art, in those sounds. I thought it added to the story really, really well, especially in those violent parts.
I think it was well utilized in some parts, but because people liked it, they overutilized it, which made it hard to read in other areas in terms of what was happening in the scene and what was being said, what the onomatopoeia was. Which I don't know if anybody cares about that other than me, but I do care about reading what the onomatopoeia is.
I didn't care as much because I was always able, even if I couldn't figure out what the sound was, I could look at the art in it and figure out what it was. Essentially, maybe not exactly what the sound they were trying to make was, but my brain was able to put it together.
For me, there were moments in it, which we don't have saved for the slideshow purposes, but there were moments where they used the onomatopoeia, and I could not gauge what was drawn inside it because the entire page were the same color scheme, and they did a lot of busy backgrounds, which then distracted from the storytelling what was happening. where you couldn't actually see what was happening because the background was so busy that you lost things.
Yes, there were definitely a lot of those moments where there was so much going on in it that I was like, okay.
And there was definitely this one that I'm thinking of in particular that was mostly like an orange and yellow scene with the words and another red and yellow scene on, or yeah, red and yellow scene in the words with a full red and yellow background, and the full story panels were also in that same color scheme. And I was like, I can't tell what the heck I'm looking at in any of it. And that was just an issue that I had throughout. And then there was another thing. They did it well, but something that bothered me through like on and off were the different art styles that they adapted for different moments of time.
Uh-huh.
So like it was interesting having some flashbacks, but none of the flashbacks were a consistent.
Like the art style was not consistent across the flashbacks.
No. And
Like her funeral was like almost all just that monochrome black and white.
yeah. And then you have others that literally look like somebody took a photo and then put a filter on top of it, which all of those ones I didn't like.
I agree.
I strongly disliked every moment where I saw characters and it literally just looked like somebody took a photo and was like, it's supposed to be art, so we got to put a filter over it to make it look like art. Like hand-drawn art. Not that photography is not art, not that filters isn't an art form. That's not what I mean. But that kind of jump back and forth in a very collage kind of way bothered me because I don't like it, but I don't think they did it bad.
Yeah, no,
I did enjoy what?
I agree. Continue.
I did enjoy as much as I don't usually like very strong like mood shifts and contrasts from page to page or like pages next to each other. They did a really good job with their storytelling with establishing place.
Yeah.
With the type of medium that they chose or the type of style that they chose. And
usually all of the color changing and the like art style changing would be incredibly jarring to me. But I feel like in the environment that they created here, it worked most of the time.
Yeah, it did a very good job of establishing place right away.
Yeah.
So like this filter was for the club. This filter
Exactly.
was for the casino. And I do say filter because that is exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say, like one of my favorite places anytime they were there was in the what is it? Her uncle's like
Casino?
main, yeah, but in like the back room of the casino.
Yeah.
With all the jellyfish and the blues and all of that. Anytime they were there, I was just like, oh, this is great. This is beautiful. I love this. So yeah, I was really, really happy anytime they were there because I thought that was absolutely that was a stunning environment setting in general.
I did find the slide that's currently on there with the green and orange in the very, very beginning when the motorcycle gang comes in and starts shooting up the place. I think that, and I think I had one other moment where it was a super jarring change. But this one was the first time that ever happened. So that's probably why that one was particularly jarring for me, because it was like, what? Where am I?
Exactly. And really the only reason I have that image saved in the slideshow is I was testing out to make sure that my my tool for making the slideshow was working.
Good job, Ben.
Yeah, it works. I did it.
Woo!
Go me. And then any time that you saw her sketchbook or just any of the tattoo art in general, I I loved it.
I loved it.
It was
Those were my
meta. It
favorite.
was very meta.
Yeah, and I enjoyed those because I was like, oh, that's totally all of those pages scattered is 100% what my room looks like when I'm working on a new thing. And
I know.
I felt like these were the did you say you know?
Yeah. You lived here for a bit, and you had things scattered about in a messy fashion before.
That's right. I mean, it looks messy, but it has a purpose.
Yeah, I'm
But
sure it
anyway,
does.
um and I also enjoyed those moments because I felt like those were the only moments where I was like, yes, that is drawn.
Hmm.
For sure. That was drawn.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but yeah, again, I think for me personally, I'm in a similar boat as you when it comes to the scoring. I think I am going to try to look at it as objectively as possible. Because
I
like
yeah.
objectively, I think the story was good. It just wasn't the story, like it wasn't a book for me.
Mhm.
Um, I think I'll stick to, you know, my superheroes, my post-apocalypses, and you know things like that when it comes to comic books for like my own personal tastes. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, there obviously there will be the books I'm sure that are out there that'll change my mind. This one's not that. Um, but that's not to say that it wasn't good. It wasn't well done. You know, all of that. I thought it did I thought it did what it did well. Um, and I think the settings were, I especially liked the settings. Um, you know, I still feel homesick every once in a while for San Francisco. Um, just because I loved living there, minus, you know, the cost of living there. Um,
More
and
expensive in New York?
yeah. Um, And then, you know, same with Japan. I loved the depiction of Japan. I loved them walking around, um, like seeing all these little tiny restaurants and
Yeah,
shops
and
and things like
Japan.
that. It was. I could feel a respect for the settings, um, and I did I felt like again it was really well done. I just don't know that it was the book for me.
Yeah. I'm still stuck on a few of the characters that were in the book that I'm like, I don't understand why they were there
Uh huh.
for me to be like, because I feel like they were probably meant to be there for comedic relief, but they were comedy as being stupid characters, not comedy as being funny characters,
Uh huh.
which takes you out of the story for me because, like, I was disinterested in them.
Uh huh. Absolutely.
So,
That's kind of how I felt about the FBI character. Even at the end of it, I really don't understand what purpose she had in the book.
well, and I feel like she
Oh.
completely flipped character-wise from when you first see her, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be such an easy one," and then, "Oh yeah, I had to deal with your mom," type of a thing, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Um.
Also sad that we didn't actually get to learn the meaning of that tattoo, aside from it being a symbol for all of them to be united at the very, very end of volume 2, and,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. When they, yeah.
because I mean, Pearl to her mom was like, "I can tell you exactly what it means," and then it just goes into her in present day saying, "It's a symbol for us to wear," and I was like,
Why aren't you telling me what
"You're
it
gonna leave
means?
me hanging?"
Yep. Yep, we sure are.
And those things frustrate me because those are kind of like such throwaway moments where someone could be like, oh yeah, this is going to be super deep, but I don't know how deep because I don't know what I want it to mean. So we're just going to glaze over it and everyone's going to be like, oh, deep, man. Stoner way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. You're absolutely fine. This is an evening where Aelin is very, very upset. So I'm trying to.
Oh.
We're doing the whole cry it out method. So I'm trying to just sit here and not do anything, but talk about our comic. But you know, that little shred of my heart is trying to. Is just like, oh, just stop.
Yeah. Really quickly, because I haven't touched on a couple of these in the slide for reasons why I picked them. There was the one where at the end of volume 2 where she shoots the biker gang, and the one where she shoots the bodyguard or Mr. Mike in the head. Can't remember which one. Which I mostly saved for composition and overall like cinematic appeal.
Uh-huh.
I also, though, for the one specifically in her uncle's back room at the casino, color-wise, color story was stunning.
Yes.
And jellyfish. Which, again, for me, the jellyfish look like a photo of jellyfish with a filter on them.
Yeah. I mean, so looking at a lot of the art, you know, you touched on them looking like photographs. I agree with you, and that's part of why I do enjoy the art a lot. And you bring up filters and things like that. I'm looking at it, and I just think of some of the different kinds of like developing techniques that you can use in the darkroom. And that's the kind of vibe that I get on a lot of these as well. Like just the different kinds of, you know, dripping developer on some spots to highlight it, or you know, using tints and dyes during the processing part of it and all of that. Like, yeah, it's kind of in a way similar to using digital filters, but there's something that even though it does look like a lot of photography, it still gives me like the old school photography kind of vibes, not just like film processing vibes, not digital processing.
That makes me a little bit more inclined to appreciate it. For me, they reminded me of what is it, photo booth on Apple computers. That like I brought my laptop to school all the time, and when I didn't want to do something in school, I would turn on photo booth and just play with the filters. They remind me of the filters in photo booth specifically. But
that's what we did at our wedding reception. Is we set up a laptop and put the Mac photo booth on it.
Yeah. And it's not so much, I mean, I'm not inclined to pick up a comic book that looks like this necessarily and continue it for the art. I'm not turned off by the art, and I can appreciate that how much time probably went into it. But it's not even fully photo, and it's not fully like digital or hand-drawn art. It's such a collage of everything that I find unappealing for me. But compositionally, I know it's done well.
Yeah, it for me, it felt like it worked.
It did work. That's why I'm saying compositionally, it's done well. It's just I don't favor it.
Oh, I understand.
And I like experimental takes on it, on comics in general, and this one was just not for me.
Understandable.
As an overall, obviously these panels that we're like showing, I've enjoyed
these are
all of them except for that one with Pearl and Rick with the green background. That one I used as an example to say like that's a busy background, and then you see these two bubbles and you're like, why am I looking at these bubbles? And then you're like, oh my god, there are people. Oh my god, there are words. There were a couple pages that just gave me a headache because I was like, I gotta follow this, and I don't really know how to focus on it enough to read it.
For sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I've talked about my favorite my favorite scenes, and those were the ones in the casino in the back room, and then
Yeah.
I love the Notebook. I love
All of the times when you get to see her flashback with the banana and the ink and her sketches, awesome.
yeah. I also like that the buzz. It looks like a tattoo, but like it's written with a tattoo. Are they just called needles? Are they
Yeah,
pens?
I mean, as far as I know,
It
I
looks
am not
like that's what
notorious.
it's written with.
Yeah.
Um,
And like there were so many moments where I was like, "Oh my god, I love this art." And then, you flip the page and it was the different art and I was like, "Okay, it's done well, but I want the book in this art."
yeah,
um,
uh, I
but
get
like
it.
we said, like it established place and time, like a specific time because there were these little one-off panels throughout the book that referenced a specific flashback.
Mhm.
And with them all being different art styles, you immediately recognized which specific
Time period it was. Yeah,
memory, which
right.
memory it
Which memory
was.
it was.
And then the only other one that I have in there where people might be like, why is that in there? Is the one with the Endo twins with the full pink page. And that's mostly just because of the storytelling composition. I always like it when they break the little sequential boxes, and
Yeah,
I think that they throughout the book played with that
they
in
did a lot
a
of
very different way that was enjoyable.
yeah, they did a lot of that throughout the book, and that's part of that's what I appreciate it. And for me, none of it felt forced. Like, oh, this is something that people like to see. Let me just throw one of these in here and maybe sprinkle a little
Yeah,
bit
there
of
was a
that.
lot
And
of thought in the overall composition of every page.
right. Um, so yeah, I liked I think the storytelling in the art was as good, if not maybe a little better than the storytelling in the words.
I agree.
Um,
I agree. I mean, because some of the words, if you're talking like onomatopoeias and things like that, that became the artwork
uh-huh.
very much. And I will say the words in terms of establishing place during the road trip and things like that, and the passing of time was well done.
Hmm.
And it was integrated into the artwork. It didn't just look like a title page.
Right.
So
Well, should we start jumping into our ratings then?
I think so. Oh, I also talked about the textures and some of the backgrounds
Mhm.
in my notes for places and things like that. We said that some of them got super busy and distracting and hard to read, while others, I do want to point out that others did it very, very well and gave heightened the mood of the place, especially in the club where Rick was a performing tattoo artist.
Yes.
You felt like deep bass
You
while you
you
were
really
reading it.
did. You like going through going through any of the club scene. You could feel the
Yeah.
going on in the background, and it's like, okay, yeah, this fits. Um,
And yeah.
and I enjoyed like the like kind of like Miami Vice kind of feel to it as well, and
Yeah, it was
Miami
yeah,
Vice meets like 007 in this particular scene where she shoots that guy in the hand.
and I love the perspective on seeing her through the hand was
Yeah.
interesting and well done.
It just
Um,
like I said, it
I wish
reminds me
she had a little bit
007.
yeah, and I wish she had a little bit more of a contrast than to the background.
Mhm.
But that's nitpicky.
Yeah. All right. Story. I talk about the story.
That's on you, boo.
It is
No, I
on
didn't like
me.
never calling you that again.
That's okay. So I mentioned it a lot. I think this just wasn't a story for me, but I can appreciate it was a well put together story. It did bounce around a little more than I usually like for a comic book. For like a novel, it would have worked a little bit better for me, I think, in the sense of it jumping around as much as it did. Um, but
I think it played more sorry.
no,
I feel like the jumping around points for me wouldn't lend so much to a book, but to like TV show episodes.
yeah,
They
like
leave off with a cliffhanger, and then the next episode starts somewhere completely different than the cliffhanger, which is the main reason why you're invested in this next episode, because you're like, they gotta address what happened in the last episode to keep you reading or watching,
no,
rather.
you know what? You bringing that up, you know what the flashbacks kind of reminded me of.
Hmm.
Did you watch Psych?
I watched, as long as like we're cool with spoilers at this point, I watched Psych up to the point where he was about to propose to Juliet and Juliet left him because she found out he wasn't really psychic. That was the last bit that I ever
I
watched.
mean, I think there's only like one season after that, maybe two seasons after that.
Okay.
But yeah, I hope we're okay with spoilers for a show that's been over for a long time.
Good while.
No, but at the beginning, so every episode of Psych, the beginning of it is a flashback to Sean's childhood, usually with his dad. That's kind of how I felt like this book was doing it, but it didn't. I know it had issues, like not like it had issues. Like volume one was issues 1 through 6,
Mm-hmm.
but I did not notice exactly where those breaks were. So it could be that like that's kind of how this one went. But yeah, so going back to the rating for the story, I think it wasn't a story for me, but it was still an enjoyable story. I also don't know that this is. I wouldn't say this is Brian Michael Bendis's best work either. Um, I would actually say it's pretty far from his best work personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I I don't know why I'm having such a struggle with figuring out where it falls. I think I think for me it probably lands in like 7 territory on story. Um, and again, I feel like there's a lot that has been done better.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Bendis did like the Avengers versus X-Men story. He did some of Civil War. He did what?
Which one?
Which Avengers versus X-Men?
Yeah. There's just a lot of like fights between them
Right,
type of a
right.
thing.
No. I mean like the actual Avengers
Main
versus
story arc.
X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
How it used to
yeah,
be.
I think story for me falls into 7. And I think that's fair.
Mhm.
I don't think I'm being overly harsh. And again, I'm trying to be as objective as possible. It's hard sometimes to be that objective when you when you read comic books for fun too.
Yeah. I mean,
It's not one that I would have continued probably reading for fun.
No, I wouldn't have finished this if it wasn't for us reading it for
Right.
this.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'm glad that we read both volume 1 and 2, because I think if we had just read volume 1, my score would be significantly lower.
I agree. I think volume 2 was better.
Yeah. And
in a lot of ways. Well, because I felt extremely confused throughout the entirety of volume 1.
Agreed. It's funny because I finished reading volume 1, and I was in bed and I looked at Lee and I was like, I have no idea what I just read, and she was like, was this Anna's pick? I'm like, no, this was my pick. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's like this albino Asian girl, owns a tattoo shop and it got shot up, and she's in Yakuza territory, and the guy, the Yakuza leader there is like, oh, you're gonna be my new hitman, and she becomes a hitman, and then
It's a bad hitman.
Is a bad hitman, and then like they get mad at her, but they don't kill her, and I'm like, I don't know why. She looked at me and she's like, it sounds like you know what's going on. It's just confusing. I'm like, yeah, okay. I guess I can at least summarize the story, but I have
no clue why everything is happening.
Exactly. And that's where I struggled. I was like,
clue what the story is really about.
Yes, exactly.
Is it about Yakuza? Is it about a tattoo artist? Is it about
Is it just going to be about her being a hitman?
Is it about her on the run from the Yakuza? Like, I had no idea by the end of volume 1, honestly.
Yeah, agreed. But solid 7 story-wise for me.
So I was having a hard time because I felt, which just makes me feel a little bit better, because I think I'm scoring high, and I gave it a 7, but I think I'm scoring high for me because I didn't enjoy it.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I don't know if this story actually deserves higher, and I'm just like shrouding it in my personal lens, like, of enjoyment. I didn't. But overall, I think that it introduced characters that were not needed, that didn't help the story, that took away from the story, that were outright stupid. Between the Endo twins and Rick, like, they were portrayed as kind of idiots.
You need a good idiot in your story.
You need 3 of them?
Sometimes.
Okay. I was extremely confused throughout all of the first volume as to where the story was going, which is why I don't think I would have stayed interested in the comic as it was being released, which for me is something that I want to include in my scores.
Yeah.
How interested I would have, or how captivated I would have been reading them as they came out.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm giving it a 7. And I did feel like a lot of the dialogue was very forced when it could have been written a little bit more natural and meaningful. And the one that gets me so bad is when she is dancing with her cousin, because I loved that panel, and the only reason that panel didn't make it on my favorites is because the dialogue for me was so stupid.
The dialogue ruined it.
It did, because the dialogue felt very forced, which then made me look at the pictures, and I was like, oh, it kind of looks like stop motion dancing, which also looks forced. And I was like, that's just being shrouded, or that's why the reason I look at this and think the dancing looks forced is because I very much feel like the dialogue was forced. So then that ruined the entire page for me. And I was like, dang it. So yeah, 7.
All right. Well, that brings us to art.
Which starts with me. So, art-wise, I appreciate the experimental kind of art style, the multiple different types of art style between what looks to be, I keep phrasing in stupid ways, looks to be traditional, digital, photographic, and collage of all of them
Uh-huh.
together in the pages. I think that how they structured a lot of the layouts was extremely creative. I did feel like a lot of the storytelling in time passing, in onomatopoeias and everything like that was really on the art.
Uh-huh.
I felt like a lot of it was gripping mostly because of how it was composed on the page. I did find the moments to be too busy. I didn't like a lot of the art styles as a personal thing. However, I can recognize that they were done well for being an art style that I just don't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So I give it an 8.
Okay.
I think that the busyness knocked it down. I think that the other things that I said knocked it down.
Yep.
While keeping it up. I mean, I'm knocking it down for how all over the place it was. However, it was done really well for how it was all over the place. So maybe it should be a 9, but I wrote down in my notebook that it's an 8, and I spent hours trying to figure out these scores. So I'm going to stick with the 8.
That's fine.
So,
for me, I mean, I'm saying a 9, pretty much for all of the same reasons that you said. Except for me, it was all art styles that I did really enjoy. Like I don't have a lot of bad things to say about the art, other than for some of those flashback scenes and kind of some of those same really super busy backgrounds that were super really busy for no reason at all.
and distracted you, and then you couldn't actually see what was happening.
Yep, and then on top of that, there were times where I was already struggling just like reading everything that was in the book. And then on top of that, having those really busy pages too, it just it did not all go well together. So that's the only reason that mine isn't a full on 10. I give this book art wise a 9. Again, there were just so many scenes, environments, settings, whatever you want to call them, that I just stopped and stared at for a long time.
Sure. Your book, your overall first.
Yep. So overall, I'm giving it an 8. I think art carries quite a bit of the story here, and I think that the world that they built around Pearl was really well done, and it is. I wouldn't recommend this to every new comic book reader, but I do know a few people who have never read comics that I would say, hey, you should check out this book because I think you'd like it. Just because of, the Yakuza angle, the San Francisco setting, the tattoo artist, character, and these kind of like super cliche, like gangsterish kind of relationships going on and how silly and ridiculous they are. I definitely know some people who I could recommend this book to. I would not.
I would recommend it.
What's that?
I said, I don't know anybody who I'd recommend it to, but I could see myself recommending it to somebody.
Yeah. It's definitely not a book that I'll like file away as, oh, this will never get recommended to anybody. Because there are definitely going to be people that I think would enjoy a book like this. I think that if you're a big Brian Michael Bendis fan, this isn't going to be your go-to BMB book. Not like not like Low was for Rick Remender, who I still
I love those.
That
I
that
want to continue reading those.
I really need to continue reading it too. Though that was so good. If you haven't seen that episode in the YouTube channel, check it out. Same with if you're listening on the podcast, "Low" by Rick Remender. That might be one of my favorite books that we've read on this show. Just based, it was your pick. So yeah. So yeah, overall, I feel like an 8 is again fair. It wasn't for me, but I could see how it would be for some people. And again, the storytelling was good, and the storytelling both in art and in just the story itself, solid. A little wordier than most comics that I would really like, but
It wasn't a hard read.
no.
So, and I mean, there were a couple of that we've read in the past where it was a little bit harder to read because the art didn't support that amount of text.
Yes.
So this one at least had a good balance. My overall score is also an 8.
Okay.
I think that the art speaks for itself better than the story, or at least the written word. I don't want to say story because the overall story was interesting. Took very surprising turns. I will really quickly, just as a note, say, because I kept saying like the Endo twins and Rick were like stupid comedic relief, or I felt like they were there for comedic relief, but I didn't think that they were done well. I thought that Kim was comedic relief done well.
Yeah, like the sassy best friend kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then where she like got a job in Toronto waiting for Pearl to come back, and
Or
that
Portland.
day was like,
It was Portland, not
Portland,
Toronto.
sorry, not Toronto.
Toronto's very far away.
And she was just like, bye.
Yep.
So I thought that she was comedic relief done well, whereas I thought the Endo twins and Rick were kind of throwaway characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, so overall score was an 8. I think that the book is probably better than how we're selling it, just because we didn't like it.
I think
it wasn't didn't like it. It wasn't my cup of tea. You've said it wasn't your cup of tea. So I mean, I feel like a lot of people.
I think we've done a pretty good job at
being neutral.
At being neutral. Yeah, like you said, not our cup of tea, but still good.
Mm-hmm. And I want to hear from people who are like super passionate about this book being absolutely amazing, because I could see somebody really enjoying it, but
Same.
I would love to hear what makes this one of your favorite ones. Is it the art, or did you thoroughly enjoy the overall story, the overall like everything together?
Mm-hmm. Kind of like how Astro Boy for our last batch. It's like we did not like it, but the conversation that was had in the Discord, which you can join in a link in the description below, the conversation that came up and like going over why that book was really loved by other people was really quite a lot of fun. So yeah, definitely join us in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts on the book, especially if we're really big fans of it. If you completely disagree with us and thought the book was trash and we should have rated it accordingly, you can let us know that as well. Next week is manga.
What was my pick?
Yes, it was.
And it is called Blue Period, Volume 1. I was going to say the Blue Period, but there is no the.
It's just Blue Period.
Yeah.
And just so everyone else knows in the future, real quick, thank you everyone who helped us get to 100 subs on YouTube. We are really excited that we were able to do that, and because of you 100 subscribers out there, we were able to get a custom URL for YouTube. So we're now youtube.com/Shalom-Aste comics.
Cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know you needed 100 subs to get that.
Yeah. you need 100 subs to be able to get that. And because of that, we are putting out more content exclusively on the YouTube channel, not coming to the podcast stuff. This is still going to be the only podcast that we are doing. So if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, head over to the YouTube channel. We've got some other content coming out. This is the first week where we've done Man Crush Monday and Woman Crush Wednesday. I have a what I've been reading this week video coming out on Saturday, so the day after this comes out on YouTube. And I will be doing that weekly as a essentially Benpai's pull list kind of little short thing. There's also a video that came out this week. I bought a box of 50 mystery DC comics and did kind of a unboxing video. Yeah, tune in for all of that content. You can also find us at Shalom-Aste Comics on Instagram and TikTok, where we are posting our kind of our short form content too. I am trying to come up with all sorts of different things that we can post on the TikTok. I'm thinking of doing things like little mini reviews on like Marvel shows, like What If, things like that. It kind of just depends on what people think of the content there and what gets some views, some likes, and all of that. Otherwise, you can follow. I'm sorry. Say that again.
I was gonna say, and TikTok can have in the future might have ads, like little clips of stuff that happens to kind of promote you to check us out on YouTube if we haven't motivated you already.
Exactly. Anna, where can people find you on the internet?
I'm on the Instagram. I have 2 accounts. I have a personal account, which is Anna_Riddick, and I have an art account, which is A_Riddick_designs.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you, Ben?
They can find me everywhere on the internet at It's Benpai, ITSBENPAI, and that's Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. Those are the 3 things that I use.
What's your art page, Ben?
Oh yeah. My photography art that has not been updated in a while on Instagram at Benpai Photo. So yeah, check that out as well. And then of course you can find all of the different things Shalom-Aste comics related by visiting itsbenpai.com/comic book club. So yeah, be sure to check that out. And guys, until next time, Shalom-Aste.
Okay.